Power of Not Reacting, written and published by Ngasline. In our fast-paced world, the ability to pause before reacting has become an increasingly valuable skill. This space between a trigger and our response holds immense power. It's where wisdom resides and where better decisions are made. When someone says something that upsets us, or when we encounter a challenging situation, our natural tendency is to react immediately. This instantaneous reaction, however, often leads to regret and unnecessary conflict. The human brain is wired for quick reactions as a survival mechanism. Our ancestors needed split-second decisions to survive physical threats, but in today's world, most of our threats are social or emotional rather than physical. The same neural pathways that once protected us from predators now activate when we receive a critical email or face a disagreement with a loved one. This automatic reaction system, centered in the amygdala, triggers our fight or flight response before our rational mind can fully process the situation. When we learn to pause, we create a crucial gap between stimulus and response. This gap allows our prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of our brain, to engage. Instead of letting our amygdala hijack our behavior, we give ourselves the gift of choice. This pause might last only a few seconds, but it's enough time to shift from reactive to responsive mode. Consider the metaphor of a traffic light. When we encounter a triggering situation, our emotional brain flashes red, urging us to stop everything and react. The pause acts as a yellow light, giving us time to slow down and assess the situation. Only after this brief moment of contemplation do we get the green light to proceed with a thoughtful response. This simple yet powerful system can transform our interactions and relationships. The neuroscience behind emotional reactions reveals that it takes approximately 90 seconds for an emotional response to be triggered, surge through our body, and be released. Understanding this biological timeline helps us recognize that we can ride out the initial wave of emotion without acting on it. It's like standing on the beach as a wave approaches. We can either get knocked over by it or learn to stay grounded as it passes. To develop this pause power, we must first become aware of our triggers. These are the situations, words, or actions that typically provoke an immediate reaction. They might be specific phrases, tones of voice, or even facial expressions that seem to bypass our rational thinking and push us into reactive mode. By identifying these triggers, we can prepare ourselves to pause when they occur. The practice of pausing becomes easier with consistent exercise. Start by taking 3 deep breaths when you feel triggered. This simple act creates the necessary space for your rational mind to engage. You might also develop a personal pause ritual, touching your thumb to your fingers, feeling your feet on the ground, or silently repeating a chosen word or phrase. These physical anchors help reinforce the pause and bring you back to the present moment. As you strengthen your pause practice, you'll notice subtle changes in your relationships and daily interactions. Conversations that once escalated quickly become opportunities for deeper understanding. Decisions made in haste transform into thoughtful choices. The power of the pause extends beyond personal benefits. It creates a ripple effect, influencing those around you to also respond rather than react. Pausing isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming passive. Instead, it's about creating space for wisdom to emerge. It's in this space that we find our best selves, make our wisest decisions, and build our strongest relationships. The power of the pause lies not in what we avoid, but in what we allow to unfold when we give ourselves time to choose our response. The anatomy of reactions, V's. Our daily lives are filled with moments that test our emotional control, from minor annoyances to significant challenges. The key difference between those who maintain composure and those who don't often lies in understanding the fundamental distinction between reactions and responses. Reactions are automatic, instinctive behaviors that arise from our primitive brain, while responses are thoughtful, measured actions that engage our higher cognitive functions. When we react, we operate from our limbic system, specifically the amygdala, which is responsible for our fight response, or flight response. This instantaneous reaction served our ancestors well when facing physical threats, but in today's complex social environment, it often leads to regrettable actions and damaged relationships. Reactions typically occur within milliseconds, before our rational mind has a chance to evaluate the situation. They're characterized by immediate emotional outbursts, defensive behavior, and actions we might later regret. Responses, on the other hand, involve our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for executive function, rational thinking, and decision-making. When we respond rather than react, we create space for consideration, allowing us to choose actions aligned with our values and long-term goals. This transformation from reaction to response isn't automatic. It requires conscious effort and practice. Building a response toolkit begins with awareness. Start by identifying your common triggers and typical reactive patterns. Perhaps you tend to raise your voice when feeling disrespected, or you withdraw completely when facing criticism. Understanding these patterns is the first step toward changing them. Your response toolkit should include alternative behaviors that serve you better, such as taking deep breaths, asking clarifying questions, or expressing your needs calmly and clearly. Consider Sarah, a marketing executive who used to snap at her team members when projects fell behind schedule. After learning to transform her reactions into responses, she began pausing before addressing delays, asking about obstacles her team was facing, and collaborating on solutions rather than assigning blame. This shift not only improved team morale, but also led to better problem solving and increased productivity. Another example is Marcus, a father who would immediately lecture his teenage daughter whenever she made mistakes. By developing his response toolkit, he learned to listen first, acknowledge her feelings, and guide her toward her own solutions. This transformation strengthened their relationship and helped his daughter develop better decision-making skills. The process of transforming reactions into responses involves several key elements. First is the cultivation of self-awareness, recognizing the physical sensations, thoughts, and emotions that precede a reaction. Next is the development of pause power, the ability to create space between stimulus and action. This pause, even if brief, allows you to access your response toolkit and choose a more appropriate action. Your response toolkit should be personalized to your specific challenges and circumstances. It might include phrases to buy time. Let me think about that. Physical actions, stepping back, unclenching your fists, or mental techniques, counting to 10, recalling your values. The key is to have these tools readily available when you need them most. Real emotional management success comes from consistent practice in low-stakes situations. Each time you successfully transform a reaction into a response, you strengthen the neural pathways that support this behavior, making it easier to access in more challenging moments. Think of it as building emotional muscle memory. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The anatomy of reactions versus responses reveals that while we can't always control our initial emotional impulses, we can develop the ability to choose our actions. This skill becomes increasingly valuable in our professional and personal lives, leading to better relationships, clearer decision-making, and a more peaceful existence. The power to respond, rather than react, is available to everyone. It simply requires understanding, practice, and patience with ourselves as we develop this crucial life skill. Cultivating inner calm. In a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control, maintaining inner calm is your greatest superpower. The ability to remain composed while others lose their composure isn't just admirable, it's transformative. When you cultivate inner calm, you create a fortress of emotional stability that external chaos cannot penetrate. The foundation of inner calm lies in understanding that your internal state need not mirror the external environment. Just as a lighthouse stands unmoved by crashing waves, you can learn to maintain your serenity regardless of the storms that rage around you. This begins with recognizing that calmness is not passive. It's an active choice and a powerful position of strength. To develop this inner sanctuary, start by creating what's known as a calm anchor. This is a mental or physical touchstone that you can return to whenever you feel your composure being challenged. Your calm anchor might be a specific memory, a meaningful phrase, or a physical sensation like feeling your feet firmly planted on the ground. The key is choosing something that resonates deeply with you and practicing connecting with it during peaceful moments, so it's readily accessible when you need it most. Breathing serves as one of the most effective techniques for maintaining composure. Deep, intentional breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, naturally calming your body and mind. Practice taking slow, deliberate breaths, counting to 4 as you inhale and 6 as you exhale. This simple practice can become your first line of defense against emotional turbulence. Visualization is another powerful tool for cultivating inner calm. Imagine yourself as a mountain, solid, unmovable, and peaceful regardless of the weather that passes around it. The storms may come and go, but the mountain remains unchanged. This image can help you maintain perspective when faced with challenging situations or difficult people. Physical practices also play a crucial role in developing inner calm. Regular exercise, adequate sleep, and proper nutrition create a stable foundation for emotional equilibrium. Consider incorporating activities like yoga, tai chi, or meditation into your daily routine. These practices not only calm your mind, but also create a stronger connection between your mental and physical state. One often overlooked aspect of maintaining composure is environmental management. Create spaces in your life that promote calm. This might mean designating a quiet corner in your home for reflection, organizing your workspace to minimize stress, or setting boundaries with people who tend to disturb your peace. Your external environment significantly influences your internal state. Cultivating inner calm is not about suppressing emotions or becoming emotionally numb. Instead, it's about developing the ability to observe and experience your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Think of it as creating a buffer zone between the trigger and your response, allowing you to choose how you engage with challenging situations. Practice scenarios provide excellent opportunities to strengthen your calm response. Start with small challenges and gradually work your way up to more difficult situations. For example, practice maintaining composure during minor inconveniences like traffic delays before tackling more significant emotional triggers. Each successful experience builds your confidence and reinforces your ability to remain calm under pressure. The power of inner calm extends beyond personal benefit. It influences those around you. When you maintain your composure in challenging situations, you create a ripple effect of calmness that can transform the entire dynamic of a situation. Your steady presence becomes a sanctuary for others, demonstrating that peace is possible even in turbulent times. Cultivating inner calm is a journey, not a destination. Some days will be easier than others, and that's perfectly normal. What matters is your commitment to consistently returning to your center, regardless of how far you may temporarily stray. With practice, your capacity for maintaining composure will grow, and you'll find yourself naturally responding to life's challenges with greater equilibrium and wisdom. The wisdom of restraint. In a world that often celebrates the loudest voices and quickest reactions, true power lies in the ability to exercise restraint. The wisdom of restraint is not about suppression or denial of emotions. Rather, it's about understanding when and how to express them most effectively. Throughout history, the most influential leaders and decision-makers have demonstrated that measured responses carry far more weight than impulsive reactions. Consider the power dynamic that occurs when someone raises their voice in anger, and you respond with calm composure. Your restraint immediately shifts the energy of the interaction. The person who maintains their composure while others lose control of their emotions demonstrates true strength and leadership. This principle has been demonstrated countless times in negotiations, personal relationships, and professional settings. The practice of restraint begins with recognizing that our initial impulses aren't always aligned with our best interests. When we feel provoked or challenged, our primitive brain wants to react immediately, to fight, flee, or freeze. However, by cultivating restraint, we create space for our higher cognitive functions to engage. This allows us to respond in ways that serve our long-term goals rather than our immediate emotional needs. Silent leaders throughout history have shown us that restraint is not weakness, it's strategic strength. Take, for example, Nelson Mandela, who emerged from 27 years of imprisonment with remarkable restraint and forgiveness rather than bitterness and vengeance. His measured response changed a nation. Or consider the business leaders who maintain their composure during critical negotiations, understanding that emotional restraint often leads to better outcomes than forceful demands. The practice of restraint requires regular exercise, much like building physical strength. It begins with small moments, choosing not to respond to a provocative email immediately, listening fully before speaking in a heated discussion, or taking a pause before expressing frustration with a colleague. Each time we successfully exercise restraint, we strengthen our capacity for emotional control. One powerful aspect of restraint is its ability to prevent escalation. When one person shows restraint in a conflict, it often creates a ripple effect that can de-escalate the entire situation. This is particularly valuable in professional settings where maintaining relationships is crucial for long-term success. By choosing restraint, we not only manage our own emotions, but also influence the emotional temperature of the entire interaction. The wisdom of restraint extends beyond just holding back negative responses. It also encompasses the discretion to know when and how to share positive thoughts and emotions. Sometimes, excitement needs to be tempered with practicality and enthusiasm balanced with careful consideration. This balanced approach helps build credibility and ensures that when we do speak or act, our words and actions carry more weight. Developing restraint also means learning to sit comfortably with discomfort. Often, our quick reactions stem from a desire to escape uncomfortable situations or emotions. By building our capacity to stay present with discomfort, we develop greater emotional resilience and make space for more thoughtful responses. This skill becomes particularly valuable in leadership positions where difficult decisions often require careful consideration rather than quick reactions. The practice of restraint doesn't mean becoming passive or unresponsive. Instead, it means choosing our moments of action with greater wisdom and purpose. Think of it as the difference between a reactive spring that releases at the slightest touch and a controlled hydraulic system that applies force precisely when and where it's needed. The latter is far more effective and efficient in achieving its purpose. Restraint is not about suppressing our authentic selves. It's about expressing our true nature in the most effective way possible. By developing this wisdom, we gain access to a deeper level of personal power that comes not from our ability to react quickly, but from our capacity to respond thoughtfully and purposefully to life's challenges. Creating space for clarity. In the rush of daily life and emotional turbulence, creating space between our emotions and actions becomes essential for achieving clarity. This space serves as a buffer zone where wisdom can emerge and better decisions can take shape. When we feel overwhelmed by emotions, our immediate perceptions often become distorted, leading to choices we might later regret. By intentionally creating distance between the trigger and our response, we allow ourselves the gift of perspective. Think of emotional distance as stepping back from a painting. When you stand too close, you see only brushstrokes and fragments of color. As you move backward, the complete image comes into focus, revealing patterns and meaning that weren't visible up close. The same principle applies to our emotional experiences. When we're caught in the grip of strong feelings, we're too close to see the bigger picture. Creating space allows us to observe our emotions rather than being consumed by them. One effective technique for creating this vital space is the mental step back practice. When emotions surge, imagine physically stepping backward and viewing the situation as if watching a scene in a movie. This simple visualization helps separate you from the immediate intensity of the moment, allowing you to observe both your emotions and the situation with greater objectivity. As you practice this technique, you'll find it becomes easier to maintain emotional equilibrium even in challenging circumstances. Another powerful method for gaining clarity is the future self-perspective. When facing a decision in an emotionally charged moment, project yourself into the future, perhaps a week, month, or year ahead. From this vantage point, consider how your current situation might look and feel. This temporal distance often reveals what truly matters and helps distinguish between momentary emotional impulses and decisions aligned with our long-term well-being. The practice of journaling serves as another valuable tool for creating emotional space. Writing about our experiences and feelings creates a natural distance that allows us to examine them more objectively. Through writing, we externalize our internal experience, making it easier to identify patterns, triggers, and potential solutions that might not be apparent when we're caught up in the moment. Physical space can also contribute to emotional clarity. Sometimes simply changing your environment, taking a walk, finding a quiet room, or spending time in nature can provide the distance needed to process emotions more effectively. This physical separation often translates into psychological space, allowing fresh perspectives to emerge naturally. Digital distance has become increasingly important in our connected world. Taking regular breaks from social media, email, and other sources of constant stimulation can create valuable space for emotional processing and clear thinking. This digital breathing room helps prevent the emotional overwhelm that often comes from constant connectivity and information overload. The practice of mindful observation can significantly enhance our ability to create clarity, promoting space. By deliberately observing our thoughts and emotions without immediately engaging with them, we develop the capacity to maintain perspective even in challenging situations. This observational stance helps us recognize that emotions, while important, don't have to dictate our actions. As you develop these space-creating practices, you'll notice an increasing ability to maintain clarity even in emotionally charged situations. The gap between trigger and response becomes a powerful ally in making wise choices and maintaining emotional balance. This space becomes a sanctuary where wisdom can flourish and better decisions can emerge naturally. Creating space for clarity is not about suppressing or avoiding emotions, but rather about developing a healthier relationship with them. This space allows us to honor our feelings while making choices that serve our highest good. Through consistent practice, the ability to create and maintain this clarity, promoting space becomes second nature, leading to more thoughtful responses and better outcomes in all areas of life. The art of conscious response. Every moment of restraint in the face of emotional turbulence is an opportunity for wisdom to emerge. Conscious response represents the pinnacle of emotional intelligence, where we transform our initial reactive impulses into thoughtful, measured actions that align with our values and goals. This transformation doesn't happen by accident. It's a skill that we can cultivate through consistent practice and awareness. Developing emotional intelligence begins with recognizing that our feelings, while valid, don't have to dictate our actions. When we experience an emotional trigger, our body immediately prepares for action through the release of stress hormones. This physiological response served our ancestors well when facing physical threats, but in today's complex social environment, it often leads to responses we later regret. By developing conscious response patterns, we can override these automatic reactions and choose behaviors that better serve our interests. The foundation of conscious response lies in mindfulness, the ability to observe our thoughts and emotions without immediately acting on them. This skill allows us to create a buffer between stimulus and response, where we can evaluate the situation more objectively. Consider a scenario where someone criticizes your work in front of colleagues. The immediate impulse might be to defend yourself aggressively or counterattack. However, a conscious response might involve taking a breath, acknowledging the emotional impact, and choosing to respond in a way that maintains professionalism while addressing the legitimate aspects of the criticism. Mindfulness in heated moments requires practice under less stressful conditions. Regular meditation, even for just a few minutes daily, strengthens our ability to maintain awareness during emotional challenges. This practice helps us recognize the physical sensations associated with different emotions, allowing us to catch ourselves earlier in the reaction cycle. When we feel our heart rate increasing or our muscles tensing, these become cues to engage our conscious response strategies. Response strategies vary depending on the situation and individual preferences, but certain principles remain constant. First is the recognition that we have a choice in how we respond. Second is the understanding that our initial emotional interpretation may not reflect the full reality of the situation. Third is the awareness that our response will have consequences beyond the immediate moment. One effective strategy is the stop technique. Stop what you're doing, take a step back, observe your thoughts and feelings, and proceed mindfully. This simple framework can be applied in virtually any situation where you feel emotionally triggered. For instance, if you receive an angry email from a colleague, instead of firing back an immediate response, you can use this technique to craft a reply that addresses the issue constructively rather than escalating the conflict. Emotional intelligence also involves recognizing and respecting others' emotional states. When we respond consciously, we're better able to empathize with others and understand their perspectives, even if we disagree with them. This awareness often leads to more productive interactions and stronger relationships, both personally and professionally. The art of conscious response extends beyond individual interactions to shape our overall approach to life's challenges. By consistently choosing thoughtful responses over automatic reactions, we develop a reputation for reliability and wisdom. This doesn't mean suppressing our emotions. Rather, it means channeling them constructively while maintaining our integrity and composure. Practice scenarios play a crucial role in developing this skill. Start with low-stakes situations where you can experiment with different response strategies. Pay attention to what works and what doesn't, and gradually apply these lessons to more challenging circumstances. Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. Each conscious response, even if not perfectly executed, strengthens your capacity for emotional intelligence and builds confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. The art of conscious response transforms not only our external interactions but our internal landscape as well. As we become more skilled at responding thoughtfully rather than reacting automatically, we experience greater peace of mind and satisfaction in our relationships and daily experiences. The power of strategic silence. Silence holds immense power in our increasingly noisy world. While many feel compelled to fill every moment with words or actions, those who understand the strategic use of silence wield a remarkable form of influence. In moments of heightened emotions or conflict, choosing silence can be the most powerful response available to us. Strategic silence differs significantly from passive silence, or the silent treatment. It's an active choice made with purpose and awareness. When we choose not to react immediately, we create space for others to reflect, for tensions to dissipate, and for clearer thinking to emerge. This practice requires confidence and inner strength, as it often goes against our natural impulse to defend, explain, or counterattack. Consider the workplace scenario where a colleague makes an accusatory statement during a meeting. The immediate urge might be to defend yourself or respond with equal hostility. However, maintaining strategic silence in that moment can shift the entire dynamic. Your calm silence might lead the other person to reflect on their approach, while giving you time to formulate a thoughtful response rather than a reactive retort. Silent communication encompasses more than just the absence of words. It includes our body language, facial expressions, and overall presence. A confident-centered silence. A confident-centered silence communicates strength and self-assurance far more effectively than defensive words. This form of communication requires practice and awareness of our nonverbal cues, ensuring that our silence speaks with intention rather than appearing as weakness or disengagement. The timing of silence is crucial. There are moments when speaking up is necessary and appropriate, and others when silence serves us better. Learning to discern between these situations comes with practice and observation. A helpful guideline is to ask yourself, will speaking in this moment add value to the situation? Will it move the conversation forward constructively? If not, strategic silence might be the better choice. In personal relationships, strategic silence can be particularly powerful. During heated discussions with loved ones, taking a moment of silence before responding can prevent escalation and allow both parties to maintain their dignity. This doesn't mean withdrawing or refusing to engage. Rather, it means choosing when and how to engage more effectively. The practice of strategic silence also extends to digital communication. In an age of instant messages and social media, the pressure to respond immediately is intense. However, taking time before responding to provocative messages or posts often leads to better outcomes. This digital silence gives us space to process information and respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Developing comfort with silence requires practice. Many people feel uncomfortable with quiet moments, rushing to fill them with words. Start by practicing small moments of silence in daily conversations. Notice the urge to speak and consciously choose to wait. Observe how others respond to these moments of silence and how it affects the quality of your interactions. Strategic silence also serves as a powerful tool for gathering information. When we're not focused on formulating our next response, we can truly listen and observe. This deeper level of attention often reveals important subtleties in conversations and situations that we might otherwise miss. Strategic silence is not about suppressing your voice or avoiding conflict. Instead, it's about choosing your moments of expression with wisdom and purpose. By mastering the art of strategic silence, you gain control over your emotional responses and enhance your ability to influence situations positively. The power of silence lies not in what isn't said, but in the strength and wisdom it demonstrates in choosing when to speak and when to remain quiet. Mastering your breath. The foundation of emotional control lies in our breath, a simple yet powerful tool that we carry with us at all times. Our breath serves as the bridge between our conscious and unconscious processes, making it a perfect gateway to emotional mastery. When we find ourselves in triggering situations, our breathing pattern often becomes shallow, rapid, and irregular, further amplifying our emotional turmoil. Understanding the connection between breath and emotion allows us to leverage this relationship to our advantage. When we breathe deeply and mindfully, we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps counteract the fight, or light response that often drives reactive behavior. This physiological shift creates a natural calming effect, giving us the space we need to respond rather than react. The practice of conscious breathing begins with awareness. Take a moment now to observe your natural breathing pattern. Notice the rhythm, depth, and quality of each breath without trying to change anything. This simple act of observation already starts to shift your relationship with your breath. As you become more attuned to your breathing patterns, you'll begin to notice how they change in different emotional states. One of the most effective breathing techniques for emotional regulation is the 4-7-8 breath. Inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4, hold the breath for a count of 7, and exhale completely through your mouth for a count of 8. This pattern naturally slows down the breath and helps activate the relaxation response in your body. Practice this technique regularly when you're calm, so it becomes second nature during challenging moments. Box breathing, another powerful technique, involves equalizing all parts of the breath. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, and hold again for 4 counts. This creates a square or box pattern that helps maintain focus and balance during stressful situations. The consistency of this pattern helps ground you when emotions threaten to take over. Diaphragmatic breathing, often called belly breathing, is particularly effective for long-term stress management. Place one hand on your chest and another on your belly. As you breathe, focus on moving your belly hand while keeping the chest hand relatively still. This deep breathing engages your diaphragm fully, maximizing oxygen intake and promoting a sense of calm and control. Creating a daily breathing practice strengthens your ability to use these techniques effectively during emotional challenges. Start your day with 5 minutes of conscious breathing. This morning, ritual sets a foundation of calm and awareness that can carry through your entire day. You might also incorporate breath awareness into regular activities like walking, waiting in line, or sitting in traffic. When strong emotions arise, your breath becomes your first line of defense. Instead of immediately reacting to a trigger, turn your attention to your breath. Even 3 conscious breaths can create enough space to shift from reaction to response. Make it a habit to check your breathing pattern whenever you feel emotional tension building. The beauty of breath work lies in its simplicity and accessibility. You don't need any special equipment or environment to practice these techniques. Whether you're in a heated meeting, dealing with a difficult conversation, or facing personal challenges, your breath is always available as an anchor to present, moment awareness, and emotional stability. Mastering your breath is a journey, not a destination. Each breath offers a new opportunity to practice presence and control. As you develop your breathing practice, you'll find that emotional mastery becomes more natural and sustainable. Your breath becomes not just a tool for managing difficult moments, but a constant companion in your journey toward greater emotional wisdom and control. Navigating emotional storms. Emotional storms are an inevitable part of the human experience, sweeping through our lives with varying intensity and frequency. These turbulent periods can feel overwhelming, making it challenging to maintain composure and think clearly. However, understanding that time is your greatest ally during these moments can transform how you weather these emotional tempests. When caught in an emotional storm, your first instinct might be to act immediately to relieve the intense feelings coursing through you. Yet this is precisely when the power of not reacting becomes most crucial. Think of emotional storms like weather systems. They may be intense, but they always pass. Your role is to find shelter and wait out the storm, rather than running headlong into the wind and rain. The key to navigating emotional storms lies in developing a strong foundation of emotional resilience. This resilience isn't about suppressing or denying your feelings. Instead, it's about creating a stable internal environment that can withstand turbulent emotions without being completely destabilized. Just as a well-built house can withstand strong winds, a resilient emotional foundation helps you remain grounded when powerful feelings arise. One effective strategy for weathering emotional storms is to practice emotional observation. When intense feelings arise, imagine yourself as a weather observer, noting the patterns and intensity of your emotions without becoming caught up in them. This perspective helps create valuable distance between you and the emotional turbulence, allowing you to respond more effectively to the situation at hand. Recovery strategies play a vital role in navigating emotional storms successfully. These might include physical activities like exercise or yoga, creative pursuits that allow for emotional expression, or quiet activities that help restore inner calm. The key is to identify what works best for you and have these strategies readily available when needed. Think of these as your emotional first aid kit, always prepared for when storms strike. It's also important to understand that emotional storms often carry valuable messages. They might be signaling unmet needs, boundaries that need to be set, or issues that require attention. By learning to decode these messages while maintaining your composure, you can use emotional storms as catalysts for positive change, rather than viewing them solely as disruptive forces. Building emotional resilience requires consistent practice and patience. Each time you successfully navigate an emotional storm, you strengthen your ability to handle future challenges. This process involves developing greater self-awareness, understanding your emotional triggers, and building a repertoire of coping strategies that work for your unique situation. Seeking support during emotional storms isn't a sign of weakness, but rather a demonstration of wisdom. Having trusted friends, family members, or professional counselors who can provide perspective and support during difficult times can be invaluable. These support systems can help anchor you when emotions threaten to pull you off course. Time management becomes particularly crucial during emotional storms. Learning to recognize when you need to step away from a situation, take a break, or postpone a decision until the storm passes can prevent regrettable actions and preserve relationships. This doesn't mean avoiding problems indefinitely, but rather choosing the right moment to address them when you're in a better emotional state. The art of navigating emotional storms ultimately comes down to trust. Trust in your ability to handle difficult feelings, trust in the temporary nature of emotional intensity, and trust in the wisdom of waiting. With practice and patience, you can develop the confidence to face any emotional weather that comes your way, knowing that your response will be guided by wisdom rather than reactivity. Understanding consequences. Every action we take creates ripples that extend far beyond the immediate moment. When we react impulsively to situations, these ripples can turn into waves that affect our relationships, career, and personal well-being long after the initial emotional surge has passed. The temporary satisfaction of an emotional outburst pales in comparison to the lasting impact it can have on our lives and the lives of those around us. Consider the workplace scenario where an employee lashes out at their supervisor during a performance review. In that heated moment, the emotional release might feel justified and even satisfying. However, the consequences of that reaction could include damaged professional relationships, missed promotion opportunities, or even job loss. The 5 minutes of emotional expression could negate years of hard work and career building. Our reactions also leave lasting impressions on our relationships. A harsh word spoken in anger to a loved one might be forgiven, but it's rarely forgotten. These moments accumulate over time, gradually eroding trust and intimacy. While we might apologize and make amends, the emotional scar tissue that forms from repeated reactive behavior can fundamentally alter how others perceive and interact with us. The digital age has amplified the potential consequences of our reactions. A momentary lapse in judgment captured on social media or in an email can have far-reaching implications. What might have once been a private moment of weakness can now become a permanent record, accessible to current and future employers, partners, and acquaintances. The Internet's long memory means that our reactions can follow us for years, affecting opportunities and relationships we haven't yet encountered. Understanding consequences requires developing a broader perspective on time. When we're in the grip of strong emotions, our focus narrows to the present moment and our immediate feelings. This temporal myopia prevents us from seeing the bigger picture and considering the long-term implications of our actions. By training ourselves to zoom out and consider the future impact of our choices, we can make more thoughtful decisions in emotionally charged situations. One effective way to develop this perspective is to regularly reflect on past reactions and their outcomes. By examining situations where we reacted poorly and tracking the subsequent chain of events, we can build a personal database of cause and effect. This reflection isn't about self-judgment, but rather about learning and growth. Each past reaction becomes a valuable lesson in understanding the relationship between momentary choices and lasting consequences. Decision evaluation tools can help us make better choices in the heat of the moment. Before reacting, we can quickly ask ourselves key questions. How will this affect my relationships? What impact might this have on my professional life? Will this align with my values and goals? These questions create a brief but crucial pause that allows us to consider the broader implications of our actions. It's also important to recognize that the consequences of our reactions aren't limited to external outcomes. Each time we give in to reactive behavior, we reinforce neural pathways that make similar reactions more likely in the future. Conversely, when we choose measured responses over immediate reactions, we strengthen our capacity for emotional regulation and build neural networks supporting better impulse control. The good news is that understanding consequences can become a powerful motivator for change. When we truly grasp the long-term impact of our reactions, we're more likely to invest in developing better emotional management skills. This understanding can provide the necessary motivation to pause, breathe, and choose a more constructive response, even when our emotions are urging us to react. As we develop this awareness, we can begin to see potential consequences before they materialize, allowing us to make choices that align with our long-term interests and values. This foresight becomes a form of emotional intelligence that helps us navigate challenging situations more effectively. The ability to anticipate and consider consequences becomes an internal compass, guiding us toward responses that serve our well-being and the well-being of those around us. Character development through response. Our responses to challenging situations serve as building blocks for our character. When faced with chaos, confusion, or conflict, the way we choose to respond shapes not only the immediate outcome, but also who we become as individuals. This chapter explores how conscious responses contribute to personal growth and emotional maturity. Character development through measured responses begins with understanding that every challenging situation presents an opportunity for growth. When someone criticizes us unfairly, responds with hostility, or attempts to provoke an emotional reaction, we have a choice. We can either react instinctively, potentially escalating the situation and reinforcing negative patterns, or we can respond thoughtfully, demonstrating emotional maturity and strengthening our character. The journey of character development requires us to examine our default responses to difficult situations. Many of us have ingrained patterns of behavior that we've carried since childhood. These patterns might have served us well in the past, but they may no longer align with who we want to become. By consciously choosing our responses, we begin to reshape these patterns and create new, more effective ways of engaging with the world. Emotional maturity, a key component of character development, manifests in various ways. It shows in our ability to maintain composure when others lose control, to listen without immediately defending ourselves, and to consider multiple perspectives before responding. This maturity develops gradually through consistent practice and conscious choice-making in challenging moments. Creating a personal response philosophy helps guide our actions during difficult situations. This philosophy might include principles such as I choose understanding over judgment, or I prioritize long-term growth over short-term satisfaction. These guiding principles become anchors during emotional storms, helping us stay aligned with our values and supporting our character development. Challenges and conflicts, while uncomfortable, serve as opportunities for practicing and strengthening our responsibilities. Each difficult conversation, heated argument, or stressful situation becomes a classroom for character development. The key lies in approaching these situations with a growth mindset, viewing them as chances to practice emotional regulation and conscious response, rather than as unfortunate events to be endured. The development of character through response also involves recognizing and accepting our own imperfections. There will be times when we fall short of our ideals, when we react instead of respond, or when our emotions get the better of us. These moments, rather than being failures, are valuable learning opportunities that contribute to our growth and understanding. Building emotional maturity requires regular self-reflection. Taking time to examine our responses to various situations helps us identify patterns, understand triggers, and recognize areas for improvement. This reflection process might involve journaling about challenging interactions, discussing experiences with trusted friends, or simply sitting quietly with our thoughts and feelings. As our character develops through conscious response, we begin to notice subtle changes in our relationships and daily interactions. People may comment on our increased patience, wisdom, or calm presence. We might find ourselves better able to handle stress, more capable of maintaining perspective during difficulties, and more skilled at fostering positive relationships. The ultimate goal of character development through response is not to become detached or unfeeling, but rather to develop the wisdom to know how to respond effectively in any situation. This involves maintaining our authentic selves while choosing responses that align with our values and contribute to positive outcomes. Through this process, we not only improve our own lives, but also positively influence those around us, creating ripples of emotional maturity that extend far beyond our immediate sphere. The path of character development through response is ongoing and ever evolving. Each day presents new opportunities to practice, learn, and grow. By approaching these opportunities with awareness and intention, we gradually build the character that will serve us and others throughout our lives. Advanced emotional mastery. The journey to advanced emotional mastery represents the culmination of all the skills and insights developed throughout your emotional regulation practice. At this level, you move beyond merely managing reactions to embodying a state of profound emotional intelligence that influences not only your life, but also positively impacts those around you. Advanced emotional mastery manifests in the ability to maintain composure and clarity, even in the most challenging situations. Consider a scenario where multiple stressors converge, perhaps a work crisis coinciding with personal challenges and external pressures. The advanced practitioner of emotional control can navigate these complex waters with grace, addressing each aspect methodically while maintaining inner peace. One key aspect of advanced mastery is the ability to recognize and work with emotional patterns before they fully materialize. This involves developing a heightened awareness of subtle emotional shifts within yourself and others. You become adept at reading the emotional temperature of a room and can adjust your approach accordingly, often preventing potential conflicts before they arise. Integration of various emotional management techniques becomes second nature at this stage. Rather than consciously thinking about which tool to apply, you naturally flow between different approaches as needed. Breathing techniques, mindfulness practices, and strategic pauses become seamlessly woven into your daily interactions, creating a sustainable foundation for emotional stability. The advanced practitioner also develops the capacity to handle complex, multi-layered emotional scenarios. This might involve managing team dynamics in a high-pressure work environment while simultaneously dealing with personal emotional challenges. The ability to compartmentalize when necessary, while maintaining overall emotional awareness, becomes a valuable skill. Long-term maintenance of emotional mastery requires ongoing commitment and regular practice. This includes daily reflection on emotional responses, continuous refinement of techniques, and regular assessment of emotional patterns. Advanced practitioners often maintain a practice journal, documenting insights and observations about their emotional landscape and responses to various situations. Leadership in emotional mastery extends beyond personal control to inspiring and guiding others. You become a living example of emotional intelligence, demonstrating through your actions how to navigate challenging situations with grace and wisdom. This natural leadership emerges not from conscious effort, but as a natural consequence of your own emotional development. The advanced stage also involves developing a sophisticated understanding of the interplay between emotions and life circumstances. You learn to recognize how different aspects of life, physical health, relationships, work environment, and personal goals influence emotional states. This understanding allows for more nuanced and effective emotional management strategies. Complex scenario management becomes possible through the development of advanced pattern recognition. You begin to see the deeper connections between seemingly unrelated emotional triggers and can address root causes rather than just symptoms. This level of understanding allows for more comprehensive and lasting solutions to emotional challenges. At this stage, your emotional mastery becomes a transformative force in your life and the lives of others. You naturally create spaces of calm and clarity, even in chaotic environments. Your presence becomes a stabilizing influence, and others naturally seek your guidance in managing their own emotional challenges. The pinnacle of advanced emotional mastery is not about achieving perfect control over emotions, but rather developing a deep, intuitive understanding of emotional flow. You learn to work with emotions as allies rather than adversaries, using their energy and information to enhance rather than hinder your life experience. This mastery becomes not just a skill, but a way of being, fundamentally transforming how you experience and interact with the world around you.